E.T. here. This is Johnny COULON. He's former bantamweight champion of the world. At the time, I think it was called paperweight. Can some of you experts check me out on that? He was champion from 1910. That's the year Jack Johnson beat James J. Jeffries. He was champion all the way to 1914. In fact, he lost the title weeks before the assassination of an Austrian archduke, and that touched off World War I. But today, COULON's more famous for his ability to keep anyone, even a strong man, from lifting up his 115-pound body, regardless of their size or strength. Now, some men who failed to lift COULON included Primo Carnera. He was a giant, all muscle. Jack Johnson. Muhammad Ali tried it. I think I saw in Boxing Illustrated, but I haven't been able to find documentation since, Sonny Liston failing to lift up COULON. Now, how could this be? COULON, during his vaudeville acts after World War I, when he retired, he hinted that it was something coming from the other world, from beyond. And that's something that many in the audiences believed. Here in the U.S., in England, Canada, other parts of the victorious Western world. During the early 20s, many were concerned with what was called spiritualism, and it was very strong in the nation's capital, where there were a great number, we don't know how many, of psychics, who else, astrologers, telepathists, fortune tellers, clairvoyants, the names go on. Now, E.T. is not implying that these shysters did not do impressive work, because they did. The most famous among them was one Madame Marcia, or Marcia, both pronunciations work, Champney. She hosted a group of very prominent Washington females, including several Senate wives, and one day in 1911, she told them that one of you, and then she points to the recently widowed Mrs. Edith Galt, one of you will soon marry the U.S. president. Now, I'll give you details on this later in the video. Let's get back to Johnny COULON. How did this diminutive man pull off this stunt where even the strongest of men could not lift him up? Here you can see him do this. This strong man shows that he has the strength to lift up COULON. He does it twice in a press. Then, configuring his body differently, away from the lifter, and pushing the lifter's side with one hand, placing a finger of the other near the lifter's neck's carotid artery. COULON did something that magician Harry Houdini termed a simple principle of fulcrum and leverage. COULON's elbow aligned with his hip, and that results in a counter leverage that's unnoticed by the audience and the lifter, and that resulted in this. The harder the lifter tries, the greater the counter leverage. Now, others have noted that when COULON brought up the occult activity and also diverted attention away from where he placed his fingers, it distracted the audience's attention from the placement of a hand near the very sensitive vagus nerve. Whatever. This so-called COULON effect was, though very difficult to execute without practice, it was quite explainable. It was nothing new either. It was an act way back in the 1880s, known then as the Georgia Magnetic Act. Only in this case, instead of using a boxer, they used girls. Keep in mind that before 1920, news did not travel far or fast. And also keep in mind, after World War I, Americans were fleeing the churches and searching for other explanations. And that's something that hucksters like Madame Marcia took advantage of. She operated out of a very fashionable DuPont Circle salon, and she had more contacts in the nation's capital than did any politician, any lobbyist, even any news reporter. And she was able in 1911 to predict that Mrs. Edith Galt, recently widowed, would soon be the president's wife, and she did it not by occult activities, but simple logic and inside info. The current president, very popular, William Howard Taft, is not going to be reelected. This is obvious in 1911 because the Republican Party is about to split its vote between Taft and a former president, Teddy Roosevelt. It's also obvious to anybody who reads that the Democrats are likely to pick the New Jersey governor, Woodrow Wilson. Now, it's obvious to people like Madame Marcia, with all her contacts, that Wilson's wife is very ill. She has a fatal kidney issue. And it was also known to this very small group that Woodrow Wilson was known among his friends to be, and I'm putting this in air quotes, friendly with the widow Galt. And it would be obvious that he's going to marry her, which he did. Something else that's more intriguing. Champney, in July of 1926, told her archenemy, Harry Houdini, "You will die on October 31 of this year." And on that very day, the world's greatest magician was pronounced dead. Now, that Champney told Houdini that he'd die, this during a recess of a well-publicized congressional committee hearing investigating occult activities in Washington, D.C., that made big news. And that news became even bigger when Houdini did die, as predicted. But as the authors William Kalush and Larry Sloman document in their book, It's the Secret Life of Houdini, new evidence points to poison and not a burst appendix as the cause of Houdini's death. Poison is something that the capital's occultists were most knowledgeable about. And that, boys and girls, was the story. Now, it was something different. E.T.'s going to cover the actual ring exploits of the great Johnny COULON later. Anyway, don't forget, subscribe, tap the like icon, the thumb up, and do comment below. Thank you.